Breaking news right now.
I think it was just instinct. Immediately when I heard shooter, I got up and ran, and I made sure my friend was with me. I didn't take anything with me. I had my phone in my hand, thankfully. So I just ran to the classroom that I thought was going to be the safest.
Man, I cannot even imagine. We're hearing reactions this morning from students and the community as families grasp with the reality of what happened in their own backyard.
Welcome into the final half hour of Good Day Charlotte this Wednesday. It is May 1st. We're glad to have you here with us. I'm Paige Failing.
I'm Jason Harper. We'll have more on the terrifying moments from UNC Charlotte's campus here in just a bit. We have got team coverage going on. You can see we have got Amber Roberts and Rochelle Metzger both on UNC Charlotte's campus this morning.
Howard Monroe, meanwhile, at CMPD headquarters. Let's start you off with Amber Roberts from campus at UNC Charlotte. Amber.
Well, Paige and Jason, as you can imagine, this is a troubling situation for those who are a part of this university. What we do know is that students are fearful, they are in shock, they are confused, and they really want answers. They're going to have a lot of difficult days ahead of them because of what happened yesterday. We do know the suspect, 22-year-old Tristan Terrell, showed up here with a pistol, and he opened fire for those who were on this university's campus. 2 people are dead and 4 people are injured. Now, we had the opportunity to speak with several students yesterday after the gunfire erupted, and here's a little bit from them on what they had to say. Take a listen.
Really scary. I still love this university.
So we get into the dorms and we're just getting all this information about a shooter on campus. The SWAT team is here, about how many people have died, and it was crazy.
Kind of in a sad state just because I know there are a lot of people hurt, including myself, just because why are people doing this, hurting innocent people? Nobody deserves to be shot for no reason.
Now, the campus went into lockdown yesterday in the late evening. It was on lockdown for several hours. That lockdown was not lifted until late last night. Several vigils, several events for the community to come together and mourn have been put into play now, and we do know that Fox 46 Charlotte will be gathering information and following the mourning process of those who are a part and connected to this UNC Charlotte campus. Reporting live this morning in the university area, I'm Amber Roberts. Back to the studio.
Breaking news right now.
The man suspected in that tragic shooting now facing charges.
These charges came down overnight, and Howard Monroe live this morning at CMPD headquarters with more on his arrest. Howard, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you. His name is Tristan Terrell. He was here all night being questioned by CMPD, and then earlier on this morning, he was charged and booked and is now in the Mecklenburg County Jail. And then later on this afternoon at 1 o'clock, he will be before a judge answering to certain charges. Now, those charges, they include 2 counts of murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, 4 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, possession of a firearm on school grounds, and firing a weapon on school grounds as well. Witnesses say campus erupted into chaos after that shooting. Campus was immediately put on lockdown, and students, staff, professors, they were held up in classrooms and dorms and other buildings. Students now describe the chaos.
The most startling moment was that everybody was trying to find shelter, but some of the dorms were locked because they locked all the dorms automatically. So it was hard to find somewhere to be safe.
Terrell is due in court later on today at 1 o'clock. Fox 46 will have someone in that courtroom and bring you the details as soon as we get them. Be sure to stick with Fox 46 Charlotte again tonight at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and also at fox46charlotte.com. But for now, live in Uptown, Howard Monroe for Fox 46 Charlotte.
We continue the team coverage from CMPD headquarters. Now back to UNC Charlotte's campus.
Rochelle Metzger live on campus this morning with more on how the community is coming together. Rochelle.
Flags have been lowered to half-staff this morning here on the UNC Charlotte campus. We've seen a few students return to campus to retrieve some of their belongings. The investigation into this deadly attack is active right now. We want to show you some cell phone video captured by students as the events unfolded yesterday. Now, police tell us that gunshots were reported about 5:40 Tuesday evening. A suspect armed with a pistol entered Kennedy Hall, an administration building here on campus, and opened opened fire. Now, UNC Charlotte Police Chief Jeff Baker says his officers got to Kennedy Hall within minutes, but not before the gunman was able to fire those fatal shots. Baker says his officers are devastated.
I can't tell you the sadness of the entire community to know that a situation like this has occurred on our campus. We're all pretty much devastated to know anything like this. Unfortunately, it did occur. We responded immediately, and as I said, we were able to take the suspect into custody. We also, at the same time, simultaneously secured the entire campus.
Now, as
we were able to lock it down.
Earlier, there are 2 vigils that are planned for this evening to remember the victims and to pray for those who were injured. The first one is going to be at 6 o'clock this evening in the Star Quad. That's going to be a candlelit vigil open to everyone. You're asked to wear your 49ers attire. Then there's going to be a vigil at 7:45. That's also going to be in the Star Quad, hosted by the Campus Hillel and the Brothers of Alpha Epsilon Pi. Again, everyone is welcome to attend. They're going to be remembering the 2 people who lost their lives and praying for those who were hurt. Reporting live on the UNC Charlotte campus, Rochelle Metzger, back to the studio.
And we've got a first look at one of these shooting victims that you're seeing here in this picture. Sports writer for the Niner Times, Drew Piscaro, was injured during the shooting yesterday. According to the school paper, he is out of surgery and is in stable condition.
8:35 right now. Let's get you over to Nick Koser for a look at your hot forecast today.
Yeah, it doesn't look so hot right now. It's cloudy, and there's actually some mist in spots out there. There's just a lot of moisture, a lot of precipitable water in the atmosphere, and some of that is getting squeezed out because the humidity is so high. That cloud coverage, though, is going to bust apart later on this afternoon, and the sun will be out, and trust me, you are going to feel the heat and humidity out there for today. Everybody now is in the 60s, and those clouds are going to help keep temps at bay here through the rest of the morning. Eventually, though, once the sky's clear, we're, again, going to be feeling like 90 in spots. Your 7 days coming up. For now, let's talk to Chuck. He's got your neighborhood traffic watch.
Teacher Rally Day. That's what they're describing it here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and the volume a little bit lighter because the students aren't in school today. That's helping us out a little bit. Nothing catastrophic on the major roads, just a few merging delays to deal with. I do have a utility situation, folks, going on right now. It is scheduled to be going on at least for the day, probably till about noon. I'm talking about Independence as well as Sunset at Old Statesville. Independence at Margaret Wallace and Harris Boulevard. Might want to use Monroe Road as an alternate. With the utility work, Sunset, Statesville, and Old Statesville, consider I-77 as an alternate. Back to the studio.
So much in dealing with the aftermath of the tragedy like this comes to, you start thinking about mental health. How do the students recover? And therapy is usually a topic that's mentioned the day after.
We want to bring in, again, Presbyterian psychological services therapist Zach Massey joining us here this morning to discuss. Dr. Massey, thank you for sticking around.
Absolutely.
Last hour, we talked with you mostly about the anxiety side or the fear side that now comes from a situation like this. Let's also talk now, because you have students that were on campus yesterday, and now you have some folks that are dealing with what's known as survivor's guilt. Can you walk us through how that works for them?
Yeah, generally survivor's guilt is more of a long-term cause of their issues. I think right now in the current context of the situation, the biggest thing for them is to process the emotions that they're going through right now. A lot of the shock and just the grief of what they've experienced in the moment.
Let's also talk about, if you can, maybe some of the warning signs. You know, when we hear a lot of these violent type of acts, you hear from witnesses that may have seen or known the person who, who I guess did the act. They'll say, well, they were a loner, they stuck to themselves all the time. What are the warning signs that we can look, that either the parents or friends, associates can look for to go, hey, maybe this is someone that I should mention to authorities or to a teacher or to a boss?
Yeah, I think some of the symptoms and warning signs, one would be, like you said, they might have some friends, but generally they're a loner. 2, that there's family dysfunction in the household. Maybe some of their social media posts and things like that they've mentioned, as well as maybe some infatuation with violence and things of that nature.
You know, when I hear a story like this, it's so heartbreaking. Your thoughts immediately go to the families who have lost loved ones, right? And I immediately also think, what horrible thing or things must have happened to this person, this shooter, to make them want to ever do something like this in their life, to take the lives of others, or to have that kind of hate in their own being, to be violent like this towards other people. Jason just talked a little bit about or asked you about the warning signs for those types of people. If you do see that type of behavior, or you see those red flags in someone that you come across, what do you do with that? What's the safest way to handle that situation?
I think report it to the nearest support service staff, letting them know that, hey, these are some things that I've noticed about this individual. If you're in a school setting, maybe a school counselor or a college counselor or somebody that you trust that can maybe help them in that support.
I want to talk about how important is the group that you hang out with, how the influence that it can put on someone. The reason I bring that up is because just a couple days ago, over the weekend, we had the synagogue shooting in California. Yeah. That shooter, 19 years old, the parents are coming out now saying, we didn't raise him like this. We didn't raise him to hate, to be anti-Semitic or to be Islamophobic or anything like that. Yet they're finding out that the group somehow that he got connected with had those same thoughts. We don't know enough yet about the shooter. We will maybe in the coming days, but even as parents, you think you've done your job and raised them. They go off to school. At some point, they come across a philosophy or a group of friends. How do you, what's even the question? How do you find out, without being too controlling as a parent, what group your kids are hanging out with to make sure that even mentally they're still where you think they should be?
Yeah, and at that age with young adults, they're very heavily influenced by their peers, and they have similar interests, and some of those interests may not be theirs initially, but get created by the group. And I think as parents, you really have to have open communication lines, and really the trust factor is very important for them to have with their young people.
Dr. Zach Massey, thank you so much for coming in. We want to remind you there is a vigil this evening as well. If you would like to go show support and get results for folks on the UNC Charlotte campus, or if you feel like you could use a little support yourself, also a good thing to take part in tonight. The details there on your screen. That's going to be this evening at 6 on the Star Quad. Come back for more Good Day right after this.
Breaking news right now.
Breaking news this morning, a Mooresville police officer shot in the line of duty. Officer Jordan Sheldon killed overnight in Mooresville during a routine traffic stop. Fox 46 Charlotte's Matt Grant joins us live now from Mooresville with an update on the situation. Good morning to you, Matt.
Good morning, Howard. Yeah, sad story coming out of Mooresville this morning. That 32-year-old canine officer was killed around 10 p.m. last night on West Plaza Drive in Mooresville. That's about 30 miles, 30 minutes north of Charlotte. There's a lot of unanswered questions. What we do know is that around 10 p.m., according to Mooresville Police, Officer Sheldon, who had been on the force for just about 6 years, he had pulled over this suspect on West Plaza Drive, and at some point during what's being described as just a routine traffic stop, the officer was shot by this suspect. He was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The suspect had fled to a nearby apartment complex. That suspect is not being named. He fled to a nearby apartment complex. Police get there, and when they get to the apartment, they found the suspect dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So right now, we don't have the suspect's name. We don't have a motive. We don't know what led up to this altercation. But what we do know is that this 32-year-old officer, this canine officer who'd been on the force for just 6 years, tragically killed tonight. One parent tweeting me this morning after learning about the news, saying that his kid's 5th grade class had adopted Officer Sheldon, that they were tasked with sending him cards and gifts, but that instead Officer Sheldon said that he just wanted gift cards for his canine dog. Now, we did leave the scene over at West Plaza Drive. The heavy fire and police presence had been there since 10 p.m. last night. It's cleared now. So we came over to Mooresville Police. We saw maybe about a half dozen officers standing outside not too long ago. But one thing that we do see is that the flags are at half staff right now, and that is from the shooting at UNCC less than a week ago. So just a tragic week here in the Charlotte area, and certainly a tragic morning here in Mooresville as condolence messages start coming in from all across the state. We're live in Mooresville. Matt Grant, Fox 46 Charlotte.
And CMPD is investigating a homicide in East Charlotte. Officers were called out to Bending Branch Road and Denver Drive just after 9:30 last night. When they arrived, police found a woman on the side of the road with several stab wounds. She was taken to the hospital where she later died. Officers are currently looking for anyone who may have witnessed that attack. If you know anything, you are now asked to call Crime Stoppers. Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Good Day Charlotte. I'm Howard Monroe. Today is Sunday, May the 5th. Let's go right over to Brittany Hamilton, where she has your soggy Cinco de Mayo forecast. Good morning to you, Brittany.
Good morning, Howard. Well, the good news is I know folks are going to be outside this afternoon, but it's not going to rain.
And we're going to miss you. Your decency, sincerity, and kind soul will stay with us forever. So through our tears, let us know the blessings of knowing and loving you. A great and noble man, the best father a son or daughter could have.
Wow, so emotional there for his son, former President George W. Bush there. Emotional, powerful words for his father, who remembered him fondly as he delivered yesterday's eulogy. The memorials continue today with the president being there, the second funeral taking place in Houston, Texas.
Fox News correspondent Ray Bogan live in Houston for us this morning, where people continue to pay their respects to the nation's 41st president. And Ray, we just heard some moving, emotional words from President George W. Bush. Is he expected to speak again today at the service at St. Martin's?
Jason and Rochelle, good morning. I don't believe he's expected to speak again at the service this morning. We're expecting two eulogies today, one from George P. Bush, who is George H.W. Bush's grandson, and another from his best friend James Baker, who served as his Secretary of State when he was president. In addition, they worked a lot together in Washington. James Baker was his dear friend from just playing tennis. They needed tennis partners when they were at the gym together, and that's how they met. Then after James Baker's wife died, George H.W. Bush asked him to come along and help him out with his campaigns, to give him something to take his mind off the fact that he had just lost his dear spouse. But he stuck with him all the way, and they worked together in the Reagan administration. Of course, George H.W. Bush being the vice president during that administration. James Baker was both the chief of staff and the secretary of treasury, and then he was the secretary of state when George H.W. Bush was president. So they have an extraordinary history together. They were best of friends, so one can only imagine the stories we're going to hear from him today.
Boy, you're right. And Ray, you know, we know that President Bush was a modest man. He wanted a modest funeral, didn't want a lot of processionals, both in D.C. and there in Houston. Is there anything special that's happening that's significant to that area that maybe we didn't see in Washington?
Well, what's a really interesting dynamic is to see how the city of Houston has really embraced the president as one of their own. You know, he wasn't from Texas, he was up from New England, and he eventually moved to Odessa and Midland to open up his oil company. In fact, his family home is still in Midland. It's now a museum. You can go there and walk inside of it. It's pretty neat to see where he raised his family and, of course, where George W. Bush, our 43rd president, grew up. But then later on in life, he moved to Houston, and he lived in a pretty exclusive neighborhood here. But Houston really took him on as one of their own. They loved him. The airport's named after him. And Mayor Sylvester Turner had a nice ceremony for him the other night with some singing performances, and thousands of people came. So the city of Houston really loves him.
Well, and so many people have, and people all over the world that he brought together over his years of serving his country. So, Ray Bogan, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it. Looking forward to watching the funeral later on this morning.